In this camera, please.
Okay. 400,000 Cardano Reddit users are reached. Congratulations, everybody, and tons of questions has arrived in our email boxes. So here we are again at another fireside chat with the Cardano Foundation Executive Management. Eva, give us the first question.
All right. Will there really be a fire involved during this fireside chat? I think, why don't we take that up and say, show us what's possible? So that person who asked that question, why don't you, I don't know, put one over here and create an NFT out of it? Or
yeah,
why not? Right?
I'm quite excited about the Cardano Idols NFTs. There was a really good Mexican artist who did an NFT with a picture of me, at least.
Okay.
I think it's 100 of those are being minted soon and brought in circulation. Yeah.
Rug pulls and exit scams are extremely common in the decentralized finance world. What are some things the Cardano Foundation can do to reduce such fraud or alert people about them? Fred?
I think there's multiple things we can benefit the ecosystem with. But first and foremost, it's important to understand that the foundation is a custodian. What is the difference between a custodian and a steward, you might ask? Well, the difference is that a custodian makes the city more beautiful, more functional, more green. It creates marketplaces. It creates places where you can walk and you can shop and you can do different things. The steward decides on who is actually allowed to live in the city. So they are policing the city. It's not the foundation's job to police the ecosystem. However, bringing awareness around certain things and being able to scrutinize certain things and dig in and help with certain things is something we do. What exactly are we doing there?
So my team is currently working on several initiatives. The main purpose is that we monitor, that we review, and that we also look how we can prevent such fraud from happening. One example is Andy from my team, from the community management team. He has started community initiatives. The goal is to found and to build a committee that shows what the golden standards should be for projects, for example. Because there's this rule of thumb, the more information you have about a project, the more you know about it and the better you feel, the more legitimation you get. And then we also work in other fields. There it's more about scam takedown and collecting or giving out rewards. We don't say too much because we don't want malicious actors to know more about our measures there.
In general, I think what's important here is that we are an open ecosystem. So the more eyes there is on the target, the more transparency, the more scrutiny has been done. Also, the more quality adds, and you will soon be able to see what is a quality project and not a quality project, because so many eyes are discussing it and so many brains are using brain power on it.
Exactly. And I think that brings us to the second question, which goes into the same direction. We got a question from a community member which asks us, do you plan to implement changes that would prevent SPOs, mentioning a name, from rapidly increasing fees and or create a system to alert delegators when such changes are made by a malicious SPO?
So this is something we're discussing a lot. In general, as I said, we like to be the custodian, and our staking methodology is really around enabling the small stake pools, the diversity of stake pools and impact stake pools to get allocation from us. And frankly speaking, we're extremely proud that the community woke up straight away when this stake pool changed their fees, and they involved us straight away, and we were then able to allocate out of it. It will never get perfect because it's not the protocol's intention right now to 100% identify stake pools in terms of where they're sitting and doing KYC on them. So there's a certain level of transparency and independence around that. And we don't have the resources also to kind of do these changes as fast as possible. But in this case, it all worked out really well. The stake pool didn't get anything out of it. We lost some hours down in the bunker, ensuring we could do a new allocation. And we showed that we are monitoring and we are listening to the community, and we're really happy that it was raised to us.
And it shows that the system is working really well, just how fast we were able to react. And there is no incentive left for those actors to do that again, basically.
We are exploring if our delegation strategy should change and what we want to do. And we're always open, and we're really listening to the threats also, with all the suggestions we're getting all the time. And we have one person now, Sydney, who's actually looking into it to see if there's a way we can get even more benefit out of our ability to stake. So we will come back on that on a later stage.
So then let's go to the next question. How have you not opened a merch store yet that lets me pay in ADA for items? There are already such merch stores out there. One example is Crypto Supreme. It's the same thing that we just talked about before. Our role is not to proactively act on certain things. Especially my team, our greatest mission is that we enable the community to do things, especially things like opening a merch store or any kind of business. And in that particular case, when it comes to the Cardano brand, we as a project, we are an open source, public project. We are decentralized, and so is our brand. So therefore, yes, of course, we are the custodian of the brand as the Cardano Foundation, but that doesn't mean that the community should not or cannot use the brand. So we work with many community members every day. We get requests how the brand can be used. And so that can also be used for a merch store. Feel free to open up one for yourself.
I brought some awesome stickers for my laptop the other day and gave it away to a lot of people. So there was a really good artist out there who at least caught my attention. Unluckily, I couldn't send some ADA that way, but I could send a fiat transaction. Next time I expect I can send ADA.
And with now Coty in place, that should be even easier. Also for the commercial businesses out there, the e-commerce stores, there is now an easy to integrate solution.
Yeah, and don't forget Simplex as well. That would actually allow you Apple Pay, right?
Yeah.
So the one who go the Simplex route, they will actually be able to allow Apple Pay, even though then it will not be an ADA transaction. Or I'm not sure how that will look, actually. It could be quite interesting.
Yeah, true. At least it's digital. All right, then let's go to the next question. Why are so many people leaving the foundation recently? Using Wayback Machine, I count 11 people, all of them in 2021. Some of them OGs that helped rebuild the foundation from the ground up after the Parson fiasco. Thanks for asking this question, actually. I think it's a really good and important question. I compare the Cardano Foundation with a startup. So when you work in a startup, and we are an organization of now 30 people, you have different phases. There is the phase of rebuilding, as you mentioned, or building up an organization. And then there's the phase of scaling and growing. And we are pretty much dependent on what's happening in our environment, what's happening in our community. And you've probably been part of our community for a longer time, and you've seen how much our environment has changed over the couple of months. So that means that we as a Cardano Foundation have to change as well. And we have to look into what exactly is our business architecture, what are our operations, but also who's part of our team. And sometimes you need a bit of a different setup in order to achieve this phase of scalability and this phase of growth. And we've been, I think since we started like over half a year ago, there have been many things that were moving and that are changing, and that's part of it. And I think that's also like a consequence of having a new management team, having a new CEO, having me onboarded with and a new strategy. Therefore, otherwise, if we would not bring in a new strategy, we wouldn't do our job.
Yeah, for me, it's quite simple. The Cardano project has the possibility to change the world. If we are going to change the world, we need the absolute best people, and we need to have a high-performance team who can live up to that task. IOG right now, they're shipping code like they've never done before, and they're living up to their promise. Now is the foundation's time to live up to our promise and get real speed and velocity into it, because we have a great target to reach, and we can only do that by actually moving forward. And that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, some people, they are leaving us. Other people might rejoin. but some of the latest joiners are coming from diverse organizations, from NASA, the space agency, to creative, to entrepreneurs who are CEOs of their own companies. So I think what we're trying to really get is a really great, diverse, high-performing team who can really bridge the world between crypto, a new infrastructure, and really changing the world and push the power to the edges of society. So I think it's a natural process, but I do understand why you're asking the question. And I will say that I really believe that more people will leave, but I also think a lot of great people will join. And the beauty about these platform economies is that I don't think a lot of people actually leave the foundation without actually staying somewhere involved in the Cardano ecosystem. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing as such. And it also have different maturities. So we are now, our task is really different than it was last year, as Eva is saying. So, there's a tool for each task.
Yeah. And I'm really proud of the people that we just recently onboarded. It's a great, not only a great honor and sign for the Cardano Foundation, but I think for our protocol, our project in general, that we totally raised our profile and gather such talents. All right, then let's go to the next question. Are you currently working on any deals with Fortune 500 companies? I probably can answer that from the markets and growth unit, and then Fred, I think you should answer that from the different conversations and many conversations you're having. Yes, we definitely do, and this is why we're now building up a business hacking unit. So a unit, we call it hacking because we are non-profit. So as I mentioned, our ambition is to enable growth, to hack into things, to help you actually to achieve things. So that is a next unit that we're building within the Cardano Foundation to enable this bridge from like traditional and the institutional world into our ecosystem, and also with initiatives such as our challenge in Catalyst, where we test the UX or other things. We're building this bridge. My team and myself, we're building this bridge from institutional world into the still for many very cryptic environment we're now in.
I think you said something that I should talk about, some experience with Fortune 500 companies, or maybe a little bit the wider scope of the large companies. So the architecture landscape needs to change. So if you look into the procurement department of a large company buying IT software, they buy something and the cyclus is maybe 10, 20 years before they recycle that and they go on the market again. They own that software, they control that software, they control all of the attack vectors into that. They have the auditors going in and basically looking at that. They have the internal audit departments. All of that is a confined space. Blockchain, as you know, real blockchain, permissionless blockchain, is a total different architecture. So one of the biggest hurdles we have and one of the largest task force we have to do for the foundation is education. It's not just education in terms of the universities and the students. No, it's education of the large companies and the large governments who is reaching out to millions and billions of people and ensuring that they feel comfortable working with such a different architecture landscape as Cardano. We think and we believe and what we see is that it is enterprise ready. And the deal in Ethiopia is showing that, but also all the research we've done in the academic offspring. But, seeing, believing, and doing is a different thing. So yes, we are working with Fortune 500 companies, but we actually do have some connective tissue and some things, some hygiene factors we need to have solved first in order to get the real masses there. But we do have a pipeline of around 900 companies who is basically in contact with us and said they want to start building with us. And we're slowly chucking away at them as fast as we can.
Yeah, maybe to build on what Fred has mentioned regarding education, we have announced on the Africa show that we as a Cardano Foundation, we work with non-profit organizations. And in that particular case, we announced the partnership with Save the Children. Of course, we are in various other conversations with such NGOs. And the beautiful thing why we get the foot into the door is because we have this new staking economics, like stake pool operators that delegate a percentage of their rewards to a nonprofit organization. And that's why they're knocking on our door as well. And we try to help them, of course, to get into Cardano as best as possible. But you can imagine it's a very, very traditional industry. And so sometimes we start with even like explaining them what Bitcoin is, and explaining them that it was 2008, where there was a white paper, etc., etc. So they really start from the beginning, and that actually shows how important that education is, especially if we go broader than just the blockchain bubble we're currently in. All right, next question. What are the top uses of Cardano in which larger financial institutions have communicated interest? I understand much of what Cardano can do, but I'd be interested in hearing what functionality the financial industry is most interested in at this present time. Fred, I think here you're the expert.
Sure. So any given week, I speak to a multiple area of different financial intermediaries and financial institutions and capital markets players. And the main interest, to be brutally honest, is the asset class and tokenization. So the asset class and tokenization goes a little bit hand in hand. With the current bull run we are seeing, simply a lot of banks is getting a demand on, how can we, in a zero-rate interest rate environment, get some exposure to something who does some alpha. Alpha basically meaning it's beating the market. The second part is that there's a lot of talk around inflation, and the inflation is really high, and that kind of, it can be argued if it's high enough and so on, but it's kind of creating a double whammy on this, right? So on one end, you have this very low interest, and on the other end, you have a high inflation. And when you then see products like ADA and other third-generation blockchains offering something as staking, which basically can give you, a very substantial yield, if you can think about it like that. We think about it as a reward, but it looks like a yield. They become interested. So anything related to a Delta One product, related to exposure into that, having an ISIN number, an exchange-traded product, and that is things the financial institutions are interested in. Now, what should they be interested in instead of this? What they should be interested in is what we call the Cardano standard. The Cardano standard basically refers to that money has 3/4, depending on which kind of economist you are, purposes. So the first is reference of an account. Could we have a world where we can think about ADA or another token on the Cardano blockchain being the reference of an account? Well, actually, in a negative interest rate environment, if that continues, that could suddenly make sense. It could make a lot of sense to think about doing that. And that's what we have with the Bitcoin standard to a certain extent. Many people think that the Bitcoin standard is really just a store of value, which is also okay, which is another of the purposes. And here, it can be argued depending on, volatility and all of that, whether ADA or another token on our blockchain can be used as a really good store of value. We believe it can. But the third gets a lot more interesting. And that is really about programmable finance. And I think this concept about non-fungible tokens is super interesting. If we look at the charity ecosystem we're building up at the moment, what is the value if you have one coin or €1 or $1, and that exactly dollar you are holding in your hand or having in your bank account, that you can track that all the way to the fisherman in Tanzania, that he gets that as aid. And on the other hand, that you can actually get the hash coming all the way back. And that means suddenly it's not just, this money is the same as this money, and I gave some money, and maybe some of that goes there. But the fact that you can start controlling that. If you look into the COVID help packages and all of those things is happening there, all of the governments around the world has been struggling with actually understanding, okay, we now have a help package, but who's allowed to get that? And all the audit firms are having really good days because then they're saying you need to have an audit, otherwise we cannot give you the money because we don't trust you. So we need to build this programmable part into it, and that's a part of what we call the Cardano standard. And all of that is actually possible today. And the last is really around metadata and the story of the transaction. What actually is the difference and why the two large players in all companies always are using SAP or Oracle Financial Systems is because that's the hard blood where you have all of your business intelligence. You have the story of the transactions, you have where the goods are going, you have where the costs are and all of that. Technically speaking, we can do that already on the Cardano blockchain. We are the best blockchain for metadata. Couldn't it be interesting if you think about the scandals we see out there with, these huge banks who are suddenly losing billions of dollars, that if you could ask your bank using a blockchain, what is your exposure in A? Or how is your portfolio in B? Or you are saying that you're doing A, can you validate that? If we can start to actually do this triple bookkeeping, we actually are in a situation where we can embed much more trust into the large corporations and institutions we interact with every day. And with every day, we hear a new story about some of them, not really living up to what we were hoping for. So that's what we call the Cardano standard. And all of this can be done actually without smart contracts. It can be done using metadata and the native tokens today. It is clear when Alonso comes, we can do even more. So there's really a delta today. They're interested in the asset class and tokenization around that. But I think the other part we should start really exploring because there's business value to be had today.
Probably I'll ask another question based on that. How do you think are the financial institutions aware of their options and possibilities already?
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
So blockchain was a big hype a couple of years ago in the financial industry. Really the blockchain methodology. And you also saw that if you saw on the venture capital investments. What then happened was, blockchain became the technology was looking for a problem to solve and nobody could really find a good problem it could solve. And the technology was a bit too immature. Now we're sitting with the Cardano stack and we actually have a much more mature, resilient, predictable stack than we had 3-4 years ago. And that means that we can suddenly solve a whole range of other problems we couldn't solve before. However, now the interest is really much around the alpha, as I said, we have this crypto bull, right? So there are many of the financial institutions just listening to their clients and they're saying, how can I get exposure in this without taking more risk? And risk can be defined not just as the asset risk, so what is the volatility risk, but also what is my counterparty risk, and is it a complicated product? Is it what about taxes and so on? And I think here we can still do quite some work on the Cardano Foundation side to ensure that not only ADA but all of the tokens which is available on our platform, that they somehow can get into circulation, not just on let's say non-regulated exchanges, but also getting into the regulated format. But to do that, we need a couple of, let's say, like forensic tools, and we need stronger APIs, and we need custody, and we need standards and some things. And that's what we are working on. So it's really around, how do we de-risk enterprises, financial intermediaries, and governments from actually using blockchain, using the Cardano stack with all of the cool projects you are putting on it every day.
Great question and great answer. Next question. Can you comment on the triple nature of fans of various cryptos? Is it a winner-takes-it-all market? Very interesting question. I think talking from the community perspective, we are still a young project. So many of us are early adopters. We are very passionate about Cardano, about our mission and everything. And I think this passion can sometimes flip over into getting emotional about things. And getting emotional can also sometimes be negative, or certain people can get sensitive. And I think that is what we experience from time to time in the community. And sometimes it's great to see that our community is out there and is really promoting the protocol in our project. And sometimes we also see that in our ecosystem that, we have people that don't share the same opinion or are really pro one project. But the core of Cardano is one of the key principles is interoperability. And I think that's super important when we look at different projects. And at the end, there will be an entire ecosystem of blockchain. And at the moment, we are still on a very, very early phase. So I can just talk a bit from my previous experience. We were in a very, very competitive market, like being a first crypto bank offering crypto services, for example, and there were others coming, and there were like so many people and projects entering the market, but at the end you were forced to work together because otherwise you cannot achieve adoption. So every success that another project has in terms of adoption helps us as well, that blockchain and that crypto becomes out of age, as we call it, or blockchain becomes out of age. So, and with the notion that Cardano is interoperable, we try to be an other component and add other component and create an entire new ecosystem. I think based on that, no, it's not a winner takes it all market, in my view. All right, then let's go to the next question. Shouldn't the Cardano Foundation be the leg of the Cardano stool that spearheads initiatives like what IOG is pursuing in Africa? Sometimes it feels like IOG is doing the job of the CF. Any comment on the CF's plans to spearhead broad initiatives that will bring large numbers of users to the ecosystem? Maybe, Fred, you want to start to explain a bit what the difference is between IOG and the Cardano Foundation and how we try to complement each other. And then I can go into the Africa initiatives.
Sure, very happy to do so. So first and foremost, I think we have not been doing a well enough job in actually explaining what is the job of Imurgo, what is the job of IOG, or IRHK as they were known before, and what is the job and the function of the Cardano Foundation. So it is clear that all three entities always have an interest in adoption. And I think we should not, every win for every entity is a win, and every adoption, as you said, even though it's for another blockchain, could it be the Urco blockchain from Imurgo, where also IOG is supporting, that's also great. But in our world, IOG's main job is the academic research and is the production, is making the Cardano blockchain. Our job in the foundation is really around redefining resilience, predictability from public blockchains. And what I mean about that is that if we're going to have real adoption, like large-scale adoption, we need to de-risk the risk there is by actually giving away, as I said before, the control of these critical IT systems. And a lot of that is unfortunately around regulation. It's a lot about compliance. It's a lot about education, culture, and those things. And that's not something which you can see that we are doing. When you see the Africa project and you see Ethiopia, you're like, wow, this is great. But some of the things we are doing is a little bit maybe more I wouldn't say in the shadows, right? When we speak to lawmakers or when we speak to regulators or when we are trying to help stake pool operators in terms of, are they doing asset management or not? This is not something you clearly see as a short-term win. So I think it's really important to really understand, who's doing what and why. The other part is probably a little bit about the time scale. So the time scale of the foundation is to go beyond the balance sheet. It's really about we are building principal systems for the generations to come. And it's clear when we say the build, that's really coming from IOG, which is really, there are 300 people strong now, and I think they're even hiring a lot more. We are 30 people. There's a big difference between 300 and 30 people, and also around the time scale on what we operate on. So I think there's really some challenges and changes there, but we should be better in talking about it. I mentioned to some ambassadors the other day that we actually have built a system which basically monitors most of the exchanges. I think we have more than 80 exchanges live. So in real time, we actually have monitoring based on APIs and calls and liquidity and so on, where we can see if the exchanges are up and down, and we actually are able to react on that and give them technical support if needed be. And those kind of things is not something I would say, you don't think about that as a great story or adoption, but this is what actually allows larger enterprises or larger projects, or even if you have a lot of money at stake, you want to ensure that you have access to it, that you can get it out and those things. And that's what we're really working on. So in many ways you can think about, we're maybe a little bit more the boring side, the institutional, the rails and the connective tissue. and IOG is doing the groundbreaking research and is the front running. However, we do have a team which we always say is about exploring the art of the possible. And when you look at Coty, or if you look at some of the metadata, if you look at the Cardano registry and other things, this is really where we're trying to really show what is possible with the stack we have right now. So we only look at what is live right now and how can we merge that with businesses and really create business value today.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it's what I just mentioned before, it's part of this growth hacking or business hacking strategy. We look not into how can we achieve the biggest impact in one step, just acting alone as the Cardano Foundation. We look what spark can we give to the community so that they can thrive. And I think the Coty example is a really good example. ScanTrust project, it's not about bringing wine companies into Cardano. It's bringing any company that wants to do supply chain tracking to Cardano, and the same with Coty or other payment gateways. If we have a payment gateway set up, we know that businesses can come in and accept ADA, and we work on various other things that it's probably just a step in between, but this step is super important that we reach out to and can attract other businesses to start engaging with Cardano.
Yeah. And then another project we're just looking at right now is the security token. And there's many security tokens out there, but what we're really thrilled about is that this is a security token who has the green light from the financial service authorities, from the tax authorities, from the banks. They have a shareholder register. They have everything done which will allow them. It's a bit boring, you can say, because they're really just clean. But what they really do is that they go into a business model in an emerging country, and they allow people to invest in the P&L there. So basically you can get the non-fungible token effect of that in a full, whitelisted setup. And then you can actually do good by actually investing sustainable impact-wise, and then still be a part of, get some of the return. And that means that you're still interested. It's not just a charity where you're giving some money away. It actually lies in your portfolio. And you then ask yourself, how are they doing? And can I support with more? Is there more it can do? So we're really trying to kind of explore those things. And we are hoping that, latest by the Alonso hard fork, that we basically can get the security token online. But those kind of business models we really like because it shows what is actually possible right now. Plus it allows us to bend what has been possible before by using the superior Cardano protocol, right? So those kind of standards is really important.
All right, next question. In addition to developing nations in Africa or elsewhere, are there any plans to work with low-income folks in places like the US? I think there might be an opportunity to build a user base within lower-income communities in the US, especially places where people don't necessarily trust traditional banks or where banks don't necessarily operate.
Yes.
Yes.
So I mean, we can go to all sorts of lengths and depth, right? But the matter of the fact is, when we're speaking about, what does it mean to be unbanked? It has a very wide definition. And even here in Switzerland, where we are sitting, there is a lot of small businesses and low-income people who are clearly unbanked and cut away from capital. But when we go to countries like the US, I just see a huge market, and I see the way Cardano can help there is massive. But we need to kind of be aware of one thing. So the role of the Cardano Foundation is not to run business development around the globe. Our job is to enable the protocol of Cardano that people can do this business development and that it can operate in as many countries as possible. And that we truly can give access to everybody who needs infrastructure to build a business, to get an identity, to be able to operate with the existing world, or be able to, operate in a parallel world of P2P payments. But it's really to enable people and build a new financial and social operating system. That's what we're fighting for in the Cardano Foundation. So, but yeah, I do really see a lot of potential, and we are speaking also to a Fortune 500 company who's really, it's their target group, and I think they're just really positively surprised what they can actually do and how much they can help the low-income people, around creating an identity for themselves, around doing payments, around the Mexico-US gateway in terms of remittances and so forth, right? There's really a lot to be done, and we are definitely moving in that direction.
And I think for those of you who have followed the Fund 4 Circling Catalyst, there the idea of the local community centers, that was our challenge, is that you can look for like regional or local problems and bring in ideas how they can be solved. So that was also an initiative we started not just for the US but in general to get the community involved. All right, then let's move on to the next question. What happened since the last fireside chat? Do you have a different governance model? Is there the community more integrated in the foundation? Probably you start with the governance model and I can take over for the community.
So we're doing a lot of work on the governance model in the background, and we're not ready yet to reveal that, but there will be significant changes coming in the future. As I said before, I really feel it's important that we establish feedback loops, which basically allow our current community, but also the future community, the future users who use the Cardano protocol for critical business infrastructure or life infrastructure, that they basically have a saying in the priorities of the Cardano Foundation, but also that we can ensure that we can feed some of that feedback back to the developers who are sitting and doing all the hard work in IoT. And I think one of the roles of the foundation is really to act as one of these, let's say, feedback loops. At a very practical level, a lot of things have changed. It's not something you can probably see or feel right now, but I do know that you, Eva, you feel it on a daily basis, but also others are starting to feel that. But much more to come there, and we will be pushing the envelope as much as possible to ensure that we can get the speed we want to really live up to the big task there is to support the Cardano protocol and really get out to mass adoption.
Yeah, and around the community being integrated in CF, I would say definitely yes. To the why am I saying this? First of all, we have introduced a new phase of the Cardano ambassador program. So there we have much more regular exchange, a bigger team that works with our ambassadors. And we are also working on opening it up to the community. Then we have launched the Cardano mission in Fund 4 Catalyst. As soon as like the projects are defined, we will work together with them on their proposals. We will actually help them, and this is a bit the difference towards the other challenges. We said, okay, we really want to feel how what the community is capable of and where we can support. So I'm very excited when this phase will start. In general, when it comes to the community, we have reshifted the entire community management team. So we have created this markets and growth unit. We have some very trusted community members in my team that are now having a community lead role on an international level, but also for like different people within the community. For example, the developers, which are very, very critical in our current phase. So there is a lot of movement going on, and I think also Fred and myself, we are out there, probably not on a daily basis, but we really want to know what's happening. And yes, also considering how the community has grown in the last few months, it's immense. So also there we're looking on ways how can we help this, especially also the new members that come in, how can we help them to orientate themselves in our ecosystem and get old community members on board to help them to orientate themselves. So there are many things that we're working on, and also in the scan initiatives, etc. And in surveys we do more often. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So next questions. Right now, it seems the value of Cardano is determined almost exclusively by speculation. What type of events, upgrades, deals need to happen to create a real-world utilitarian demand for Cardano?
So that's a long list, huh? We need to be quite honest around this, right? So first of all, there are so many lenses you can look at the value on. So I think it would be unfair. We can do a whole show around, what is the market value around Cardano? Is it fair? Is it unfair? And we will never agree on that. What is to be said is if you look at the global architecture of infrastructure in the whole world, we are still just a pebble in the water there, right? So there's definitely a lot of room for growth. If you look at it from another way, one of the main KPIs for the Cardano Foundation is that our purpose is to grow the average transaction fee measured in ADA. And obviously, if we change the transaction fee structure, then we might need to change that KPI. But for most of you, you'll probably understand that there is a fixed fee component, and then there is a component which is basically on how many bytes you put into that transaction. And what we're trying to achieve there is we're saying, actually, if somebody buys or sells ADA, that's okay. If somebody buys and sells token A on the Cardano blockchain, that's okay. But that's not why the foundation is here. The foundation is here because we want to capture real business value on the chain. And when you want to capture real business value, you need to put more bytes into the transaction because you want to have not just on-chain activity, you want to capture that knowledge on the chain. And when you start doing that, you will start seeing that. So there's been a great, some ambassadors and stake pool operators who created a pool explorer where you can go in and actually look at metadata. You can go in and type music or type wine, and you can see already, buyers' wines metadata is coming in. And I think what we have to really look at is the more we can increase the average transaction fee, the more that actually shows the health of the utilitarian value in there. The other side is we really need to start educating people on what's possible right now. When you go on YouTube or if you go on our websites and so on, it is actually nearly impossible to see what you can do with this tech stack today. And I'm thrilled to really announce that we will be launching a developer portal very soon, probably later than I want, but we will be launching that. And a part of that developer portal will also show and give showcases of what you can do, right? Because from my side, it's really about, if we can show you can do something, you can replicate that. If we can show that this is how you do metadata in supply chain, in this use case, you can take that into Russia and use that in mining, or you can take that to Middle America and use that for coffee beans, or you can do many things if you go to a coffee shop. How great will it be in every coffee shop, instead of there's a picture of the farmer who did the actual beans and you have no idea, how great would it be that every time you drink a cup of coffee from that coffee shop, that you automatically in your wallet can see that one Lovelace is, or one ADA, whatever that might be, is transferred directly to the wallet of the coffee bean producer in Middle America. This non-fungibility, all of that is possible today, and we need to really start working on showing what's possible so we can get people to start building, because it is possible to build on us today. And we need to change that narrative a little bit, that no, it's not about waiting for smart contracts. No, it's about actually, let's get business activity on the chain today. And on our side, we need to be a bit more rough as well and say, no, that's not possible right now, but that is, so let's move in that direction.
So historically, better technical solutions have failed over more popular ones. Betamax versus VHS, etc. Cardano appears to be a better technical solution, but how is it being popularized to give wider adoption?
So the clear answer to that is not sufficient. So first of all, we need to think about the maturity grade here. So about, a couple of months ago, right before the last hard fork combinator, you couldn't actually do that much. You still have really good metadata, right? But the native tokens really brings us into a new era. And very soon Alonso comes and you will see the curve exploding. As I said, we have more than 900 companies who's already signed up. Actually, the Cardano brand is huge compared to what you can actually do on the Cardano stack right now. So in certain ways, this is very good. But the short answer to this is, it is nearly never the best technology who succeed. It's really about user experience, and it's really about understanding the local problems and really staying on that problem and then deploying a technology into it, but not trying to, fish around and see where does my technology fit, because then you need a huge global sales force and so on. And yeah, dear community, you are kind of our sales force, right? But in essence, let's focus on the big problems and let's then augment them with the best blockchain can offer, and that's called Cardano.
And I think one of the key strengths of Cardano is the community as well. That we have such a strong, broad, long-lasting community. That's part of our USP, I would argue. Besides, of course, the tech stack.
Oh, and yeah, don't forget, some of the largest blockchain in the world is already adopting some of our technology into their consensus algorithms or into the way they do UTXO or in other ways, right? That's the part of being an open source blockchain. So even though it's very unlikely that Cardano will not be the biggest blockchain in the world and capture all this business value, but even though that doesn't happen, we're already creating value and we're already creating a push towards decentralized architecture through to our peer-reviewed open research, which is public, due to our code base being public, due to the way we operate, and also due to the way that we always will share our applications and the code stack behind them from the foundation side at least to the public, so you can find a local problem where you can actually deploy that into with the hacks or the differences you need to fit it locally.
Mm-hmm. Interesting question. A company is only as strong as its weakest link. What is Cardano's weakest link, and how does Cardano plan to overcome it? I think that goes just perfectly back to what we were talking about. That we still have a huge potential for adoption and for bringing it to a wider audience.
In many ways, I think Cardano's weakest link is also one of the largest strengths. The fact that we are such a household name out there around blockchain technology is amazing, but nearly nobody understands what you can actually do on the Cardano blockchain. So I think the weakest link we have right now is actually describing what can you actually do. So what use cases or business problems can you really do? And that's also why one of the KPIs for the foundation, or one of the goals for the foundation in the next 12 to 18 months, is that we want to have a educational program for solution architects. A solution architect is a person who works in a company who's really working on solving some of the let's say the local problems or the problems of the company, and really looking at how do we do our organizational architecture differently, or how can we do a different supply chain, or how do we do the manufacturing differently, and so on. So by basically trying to target some of those people who is used to sitting with these big problems and teaching them about blockchain in general, we hope that we can actually get in through the door in a different way, where they know their problems, they know their company, and they know exactly what they're looking for, but they haven't met blockchain yet.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree. So, last question. Help me explain to my mom in one paragraph why she should care about crypto. I know that you have a good one, so please go ahead.
No, it clearly says for Eva. The protocol.
I tried with my mom. I wasn't successful, but that doesn't. It probably says a lot. No, I was actually never really explaining why you should care about crypto. I was more explaining why you should care about blockchain, and crypto is one part of it. And in my view, I don't know how you feel, but when we had the Africa show, the reactions were stunning. I got many, many messages where people said, now I understand. Now I understand in what area you work, what blockchain can bring, what crypto can bring. And I think that is the key element. If you can explain to your mom that she doesn't need to have a physical wallet, she can have a digital wallet. And in that wallet, she has all the data that is somehow included in her life, and all the passwords she's anyway forgetting all the time. And that's why she's just using one. That is the key benefit, that you create a new internet of value, and not just a currency or something for a financial transaction.
Yeah, in one paragraph, huh?
Yeah,
one
true.
Paragraph. You should care about crypto if you care about liberty and sovereignty.
I hope that's accepted. Otherwise, you can ask another question next time. So, last question. When will the next fireside chat be?
Well, that's an amazing question. I think it's really up to you. Let's ask the video production crew. A thumbs up. Are you ready for the next one? Photographers are ready, and if you give us a lot of likes on this one, then we do it very soon. If there's not a big interest, hey, we do it a little bit later. So tell us what you want.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot for submitting so many questions. It was really hard to go through all of them. A big thank you to the team. They gave us the questions, so I think it was a very, very nice mix. So if you liked the session, give us a thumb up, and we will have quite soon another fireside chat. Thank you very much.